Hey everyone, I am hoping that you can hear me and that this is working and is in the group. This is the first time that I've done a live video from my computer desk. So comment and let me know. I'm still I'm not used to it not being a mirror, so I'm still kind of trying to figure this out and not look super weird. So if I'm like looking around and I'm like, I don't know where to be looking, that is absolutely why. So I'm Alexis Abbott. I write stories for a living, which is pretty much the coolest job ever in the world. It is what I always wanted to be, even when I didn't think that I could ever be an actual writer. I know some of you probably got this from your parents, that you should be going outside and doing something useful with your time instead of always having a nose in a book. That was definitely me. So they never figured I could actually make this as a job, so I just kind of gave up and figured I'd do something else. And then suddenly Amazon came along and changed everything. So it is so awesome that I get to do this for a living. I do this with my awesome partner, my husband, Josh. You sometimes see him in the comments. He is amazing and super sweet and basically the best person in the world. So he is the inspiration for like all of my romance heroes, and I am so super grateful to have him in my life. And he just liked this because he's listening to me to make sure that the video is going through, because as I said, he is the best. So I'm doing an Ask Me Anything. So an Ask Alexis Abbott Anything. So you can put any of your questions up and I'll, answer them. I like doing these things every new release because when I grew up, I never figured I'd actually meet any of the authors that I like to read. The internet wasn't a thing when I was a kid, so it's so weird and so cool to me that authors are here and they're in our space and you can get to know them. And I have several amazing friends who are like best-selling authors, and I am also a best-selling author, and it's all very strange and I'm still just kind of getting used to it. I've been doing this. So Josh and I have both been doing this full-time since 2014, which seems like an eternity and just yesterday. So I'm still getting used to the idea that people actually read my stories and people fall in love with the characters that I fall in love with, and it's just really cool. And it's so cool that I have a group dedicated to people who like me or who are curious about me and want to know more. Oh, all of my comments are delayed. Hi, Jesse and Christy and Josh. I'm so happy you're here. I don't know why all my comments are delayed, but Facebook has been doing some really weird things lately. They've decided that I've been posting spam in my group because I shared posts from my page that are definitely not spam. And then I submitted it to their community review board, and instantly they're like, oh yeah, no, that wasn't spam. And I'm like, I mean, this is all an automated process, so if you could tell that, maybe you shouldn't be just arbitrarily punishing me for nothing. So that's been my day so far. So there's no questions yet, so I am going to say a little bit about Abducted. Abducted is my newest book, which is awesome. It is very similar to the Hitman stories, but it's not set in the same world. So he's not Russian, and it's not set in New York. It's actually set, well, I mean, it's set in New York State, but not New York City. And it is more rural, more, I guess it's a little bit more of a horror atmosphere, because I find that when there's not people that you can turn to, it kind of adds a little bit of suspense to it. Being in a big city, you kind of feel like you always have somebody to run to or somebody you can turn to. So I think that kind of made it a bit more suspenseful, while also allowing a lot more of the characters to learn about themselves and about each other. They're both in this new situation. Neither of them expected or wanted to be in the situation they find themselves in. So it's a lot of trying to figure out where they fit in each other's worlds, and even if they want to fit in each other's worlds. So I think that's a really cool contrast. It's somebody who's, Ava's ambitious, and she's feisty, and she's trying to make a life for herself, and trying to do all of the right things. She's working 2 jobs, she's going to school, she wants to do better for herself, and then suddenly she's kidnapped. And Sal, he never kidnapped her, but he killed the man who did kidnap her. So suddenly they have to deal with, he is a murderer, and suddenly he has to figure out what to do with the woman that he found in the bunker. And of course, with all of that, you know, she is traumatized from being in the bunker, and he is not wanting people to know that he's a murderer. So, oh, more delayed comments. Hi, Melissa and Ian. Okay, so Christy asks, who inspired me to write? So it's actually a lot of different authors. I used to read everything I could get my hands on. I had like a library card. I probably paid thousands of dollars in late fees because I would just take out like 20 books at a time and then forget to return them. But I always read a lot of true crime stories. I fell in love with, what was the show? The America's Most Wanted. All of the true crime stuff. I fell in love with that like probably way too young. And so I started reading Max Hines, who is he was a journalist, and he was a true crimes journalist, but it was very salacious and over the top. And I kind of super fell in love with like the over-the-topness, I think. And then so I started reading horror a lot, and I fell in love with that, and I loved Christopher Pike and Dean Koontz, and just that kind of suspense and thriller and stuff like that. But I always wanted more romance. And my mom did not read romance, and I was not allowed having romance in the house. It was okay for me to read about murderers, but not about 2 people who love each other. So the closest I got was B.C. Andrews, who she wrote like dark and twisted love stories with a lot of like incest and like kind of rape and, you know, very twisted stuff for me to be reading. But I totally fell in love, and I gobbled up everything. And again, it was very over the top, very salacious, and, you know, very readable. Like you just kind of like flip through the books, and you just can't put them down. So I'd say that like at that point, I was just addicted, and I loved reading, and I loved writing, and I always dreamed of being able to write these stories where you just have to know how it ends. Josh, my awesome husband, asked, what's the appeal for you of writing stories about women trapped and held hostage, but rescued by these bad guys? And, okay, so that's a fair question, because I do really like it. And I think a lot of it comes down to, I really like 2 people put in a situation that they can't escape easily, and they have to deal with each other. I guess it's kind of like the Big Brother aspect. I never watched the show, but I know what the show's about, so I'm going to use it anyways, where just all of these strangers are pushed together, and they have to be in the same room, and they have to deal with each other, and they have to figure out their differences and kind of grow together if they hope to, you know, make it. I guess. And so with romance, that's a really cool trope, because it's like you could take two people who are polar opposites and throw them together and see how they can make it work. So I think that's really cool, and a really fun way to kind of explore two characters that are very different for each other. I try to do that a lot in my stories, where the two characters are very complementary but are not the same. So they each have a skill set that the other needs. So like in Sold to the Hitman, Cassie is very soft, and she's very kind and loving and sees the best in everybody, whereas he is more guarded and closed off and kind of jaded of the world. So the two of them can kind of, he helps her grow up and mature and be a bit more savvy about street smart stuff, whereas she can help soften him. So it's very similar in Abducted, where she's very driven, but so is he. But she is also far more kind of curious, very, very headstrong, very kind of loner. And until recently, he had always worked with his group of people, and he had always had their backs, but now he's finding himself as the loner, and he's having to adjust to that. So she's able to kind of help him adjust to that, while he's able to bring something into her life that's new and exciting. She's never been in a relationship before, so it kind of opens her eyes to a new way of living. So I think that's really cool. Melissa asked, how did you get into writing? I have been writing since I was able to write. My parents actually sent me like a box of baby stuff, and in grade 2 I had self-published my own novel about a little bunny who went on to save the world through environmentalism and litter prevention. So ever since then, I've always been writing. I started writing seriously, like for other people, I guess, in 2008 or so. And that was when I kind of decided that I wanted to write something that other people could read and try to improve. And so ever since then, I've been just, I have so many stories in my brain. I have so many story ideas, and it's just a compulsion now. I just want to write more. I love it. I love being able to explore characters and get into their head, and just, I love knowing that so many people are impacted by my stories. It really drives me on to keep going. I get fan mail a lot from people who, you know, are widows and who are lonely or just going through hard times, sicknesses and stuff like that. And romance novels are such a great, wonderful escape from all of that. It's something predictable, but in all of the best ways, where you know that, you know, in the end, everything's going to work out. And I think that's a lot of stability that people don't have in their real life. So being able to help people and being able to help myself, I deal with some mental illnesses and all of that fun stuff. So I find romance is a really good way of kind of working out my own issues and being hopeful and being grateful and just kind of finding that love and happiness in my own life. It helps me appreciate Josh more. It helps me appreciate my own life more. And I think that's just really cool. There's this one quote that's, I'm going to completely botch it, but basically saying that words are magic. They are, like, an entire book is just a different combination of 26 letters, and it paints a picture, and it's I mean, it's the closest we can ever get to magic, I think, and that is just so cool. How can I say no to being able to do that? My favorite part of writing this book, okay, so it was actually the editing, I think. So I was going through, and like I had my outline all done. I had everything ready to go, and I wrote the story, and I was really happy with it, but I wasn't as happy as I wanted to be with it. I thought that it could use a bit more tension, a bit more drama, a bit more flair. So I went back and I read through it again, and I added in an extra like 5,000 words, and it was so fun because it was already done, and like most of the story was already done. So it was really cool to be able to just try to make it better and to improve on what was already there. So the sex scenes I thought were already perfect the first time, because I think I'm pretty good at that. But I definitely heightened the drama and the tension, especially in the first few chapters when they first meet. I wanted it to be really tense and really wanted it to be suspenseful and a page turner. So I think I did a really good job with that, and I was really proud of how I did that after. Will we be seeing more of the mafia and Dark and Gritty? Okay, so A Contract Killing Couple is actually one of the books that I most want to write, and we have it all outlined, and we have it all planned, and we have it all plotted, and the only thing that's stopping me is I'm afraid everybody will hate it, but it's something I really want to write. I'm not sure if you guys have seen Dexter, but in one of the seasons he has a girlfriend who kills with him, and it is like my favorite season, and I love it so much. I'm watching Good Behavior right now, which is another show which I think everybody here should probably watch, because it is all about a woman who starts dating a hitman, and he is literally a hitman, and she interrupts his first hit. Or not his first hit, but she finds out he's a hitman, and she tries to interrupt his hit, and it is just phenomenal. And I love them working together, and I love them drawing out the good and the bad in each other, and especially where I try to write hitmen who have morals. They have a moral code. So like in Leon, the Professional, or Scarface, like they have a code: no women, no kids. They are here to kill bad guys who are drug dealers, who are murderers, who are rapists, who are worse than them. So I think it would be very natural to write a character who works with a hitman and who does that together. And I really love the idea. So it might be coming this year. We're gonna see. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up on all of the amazing questions. My most favorite character to write. That is so hard. Okay, so I really have a thing for Alice in Redeeming Victor. She is a stripper who has a one-night stand with this really sexy military guy, and she thinks he stands her up after that one-night stand. So she raises her daughter mostly by herself, and she is fierce, and she is fearless, and she will do anything to help her daughter. And I think that's really great. And it was so much fun writing, especially the stripper scenes. I love just that kind of sensual atmosphere. The next book I'm working on has another stripper, except she is an undercover cop. So she is pretending to be a stripper. So I think that one's going to be really fun too. And thank you, Ian. Mental illness sucks. It really does. Any kind of illness, especially a chronic illness or a disease, sucks, and it's hard to cope with. I'm going through appointments. I finally got to see healthcare people, so I'm going through appointments, and it's hard, but it is so worth it. And just making sure that I have all that self-care and all the awesome support here is so awesome. I've posted here before that sometimes I get really anxious for releases and stuff. So knowing that you guys are all cool with that and all open with it is really good. It's nice to not have to hide that aspect of myself because it does impact quite a lot. Yay, I'm so happy to know more people might be interested in some contract killing couples. Oh yay, more fierce and fearless women too. I like having I like a nice mix. Like I like writing softer characters who are kind of meek and timid, but I also like having stronger female characters. I feel like it's kind of, when I was younger, I was very meek and I was very timid and I was very shy and I didn't have great self-esteem and everything. And now I'm 33 and I feel a lot more confident and comfortable in my own skin and everything. So I kind of like reminiscing about how I used to be and kind of like picking up on those traits and having fun with them, and also kind of picking up on different stronger traits and kind of, I guess, when I was younger, who I kind of wished I had been. So there's a bit of wish fulfillment there, I guess. Trying on different personalities is a pretty cool part of being a writer. I think I have everyone's questions up till now, but I'm going to keep answering questions. Thank you guys so much for joining me. This is really cool. The party's technically over, but I have another giveaway or two. So we're going to do that before we wrap up for the night. Thank you so much for joining me.